Let's
Oh,
try
okay.
that again.
You were not muted for me, so
No.
I heard you, and it was a
Great.
lovely introduction.
Thanks. Let's see if I can nail that again. Good morning and welcome to this Sunday. This is, of course, Brunches and Dragons, which is not your typical Dungeons and Dragons. This is more of a collaborative storytelling experiment. So I've been joined here today by a wonderful, lovely human, Lee. We will be, so Lee has made three different levels of characters. We're not quite sure which one we'll use. It'll depend on what we come up with as a story. That character's name is Let, and so again, they've created the character, and we will be working through the backstory together, and then trying to tell a quick story about it. That story might have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it might not. We'll see. It'll hopefully have a magical item. I have to remember that part. These stories will be based in Azinlia, which is a world I'm using for three of my other campaigns, two of which are streamed: Treasure Tuesday D&D and Broken Bane D&D. This story will not have a set timeline until the end. We'll figure out whether it happened in the past, in the present, or the future, and we'll see how that informs the world. So it's a lot of lore building for Zinlia, which I'm really enjoying. Now, with all of that jibber jabber out of the way, so as I said, this is Lee. I met Lee a couple of PAXs ago, back when the world was a place where you could actually meet people in person. They were making these really cool onesies for a bunch of our friends, and she knows American Sign Language, which I have been trying to learn forever, and which I just think is so cool that you know that. And since then, we've been internet buddies, and I'm really excited to play with you today because we've never we played Dungeons and Dragons once together, didn't we?
We did that one shot,
That
I
one
think, that
shot, yes,
Raphael had put together.
yes,
So we
just
have
remember
only
that.
very briefly played, and it was a group of, I want to say, 12
12?
people.
Yeah,
So
it was
there was
chaotic. Is the word.
there was not a lot of actual interactions that got to happen.
No, there were a couple of pairs, right? Like there was like Rachel and Jared got together and like did stuff, and there were some truly weird interactions with my husband who was playing a centaur and the GM, and it was fun. The birthday girl got to slay the big villain, so that was all that mattered, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's how I know Lee. Lee, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and then roll into your character. We'll do you first and then so I can start asking questions right away.
Sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Lee. As Shauna was talking about, we met at PAX. But when I'm not doing PAX things, I work in the gaming industry. I work at Riot Games as a researcher. So I help people to make good decisions about things. When I'm not doing work things, I do a lot of art, tremendous amounts of art.
Wonderful
Kind of
art.
a renaissance person when it comes to art. So I play music and I make onesies and I make cosplays and I draw and all of that fun stuff. So let's see, other fun things to know about me.
You've gotten into
I'm a
music
cat mom.
lately.
Yeah,
Sorry
yeah,
to interrupt. Yeah,
I've been writing a lot of music lately, which has
yeah.
been really fun.
I've really
One
enjoyed
of my
watching that.
Oh, thank you. One of my quarantine projects was buying a keyboard, not like computer keyboard, like piano
Like
keyboard.
a piano keyboard.
Um, so that's been really enjoyable, like trying to learn piano. For years, I've played guitar and ukulele and had a stint playing the fiddle. Um, I guess another one would be, yeah, I have a passion for language learning. So one of the things that we had bonded over was that I do American Sign Language.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always good fun.
You were saying.
Anything else before we?
Well,
Oh,
you
sorry,
were
go ahead.
saying you were a cat mom when I interrupted you last time. Tell me about your cat,
Oh, yeah,
because I'm a cat mom
that's
and I
all
love
right.
cats.
Yeah, so my husband and I have two cats. One of them is my cat, though. I've had her for years before my husband and I got together, and he has a cat. But they are Rin and Desmo. Rin is my cat.
That's
She
great.
is she is my familiar. She is my best friend. We've been through a lot together, and she might make an appearance at some point if that's not too distracting.
No,
Perhaps
it
as we're
won't at all
talking,
be
she'll.
distracting. I will love
Okay,
that so
great.
much. I will pause and
All
be like,
right.
kitty, but that's about it.
I have to say, probably one of the only truly wonderful parts about being stuck at home and work having to have Zoom meetings all the time
Yeah.
is that we get kitty cam. So
Yes.
every once in a while during meetings, I'll just be like, I'm just gonna move this camera to my cat,
You look at the
so
cats and
everyone
me.
gets to, yeah,
I was in a
awesome.
very fancy meeting where I was talking to a very high level human and I was trying to report status on something and my cat just like throws his head into my head and I'm like, And as you can see on the chart, and this human usually doesn't unmute anything unless they have a question, and you don't want them asking you questions. Like, it was one of those meetings. They unmute, and they were like, "Hang on, do you have a cat?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm putting him down. I can put him out." And they were like, "No, I want to see him." So I held him up, and they were like, "Aw." And so now, whenever we have meetings, they ask if the cat's in the room, and I'm like, "Yeah, here we go." It's very serious meetings. Yeah. I like that your cat is your familiar. I lost my familiar cat in June, and so I have a new one, and we're discussing the terms of being a familiar.
Is this Dr. Aegon?
This is Dr. Aegon. Yes, he's very cute,
Yes.
but he has just weird spring amounts of energy. Like he like I went to reach out. He burbles and like puts his head towards you, like he wants you to touch him, and you reach out, and then he springs in the air. And whenever he jumps off a chair, instead of doing that really graceful like cat jump thing, he goes like this, and just like all four legs. It's the goofiest thing. And he can't cuddle, or he doesn't cuddle like normal. He just sort of like looks at you very intensely and then falls over, and expects you to catch him. And if you don't catch him, he gets super offended and doesn't talk to you for a couple hours.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What a personality.
Oh, they both do. I got my husband a kitten too, because I keep taking all of his pets away, because they just don't. Yeah, so he's got Tungsten, Professor Tungsten, who's black and white. Mm-hmm. He's got the white stripe and stuff, and he's ridiculous. When he wants you to pet him, he will set up this huge purr roar, and if you don't pet him, he goes, "Hey, hey," and if you tell him no, he goes, "But why?" And it's cat noises, right? But he's clearly asking, but why? But I want to knock all the pictures off the wall. But I want to bite your ankle. Why? And like we don't hit him or anything, right? Like he's not crying because we've bopped him or anything. We just go, "Tungsten, no," and he goes, "But why?"
I feel like at some point I just need to witness these things happening.
Yeah, but trying to get him on camera, I started doing this kitty cam thing in the morning on Instagram. I'm not consistent with it, but I've been trying to get it then. But they're too wild in the morning. They're running all over the place, and yeah, I should be better at that.
Yeah, Rin, she's very relaxed. She's the kind of cat who doesn't demand attention a lot, but when she wants it, she wants it. Other than that, she has never in her whole life come up and sat on my lap, but she'll like sit next to my foot. She's very kind of independent, which I love and respect about her.
Yeah.
And Desmo is the exact opposite. He's a Hellion. He demands attention. He yells a lot. Mm-hmm. He likes to knock things over. I was trying to propagate my succulents, and he knocked over the whole thing just because he's a butthead.
He's a butthead,
so
yeah. Mm-hmm.
When he's especially being a butthead, I remind my husband that that's his cat, and my cat is great. So.
Yes, I there have been many times where from the other room I will roar at Aaron and be like, "Come get your son," and he'll be like, "Oh, he's my son," and I'll be like, "Yes." Right now, and I'll be like holding him up, and he'll be like trying to gnaw on my arm because it has a hairband on it. I'll be like, "Take him away."
Oh, and by the way, if at any point we're deviating too much and we just want to roll into Let me know.
Sorry, yes, we should probably do that. Okay, so yeah, but tell me about Let. You were mentioning earlier that this was a character you want to play in a one shot at some point. So tell me what you got. What inspired you to build this?
Yeah, so when I've played D&D in the past, I've pretty much exclusively played damage dealers. I've played one melee character, but essentially I am very much a glass cannon mage of historically made wizards and sorcerers and things like that. Mm-hmm. I also have the character in my longest campaign. He's a kind of a dark edgelord boy. He's doesn't talk too much. He's not very amicable. He's not a very friendly kind of person. And so I was trying to think of, okay, what have I not built yet? What would be really fun to play, but also what would be very meaningfully different from characters that I've played before. Mm-hmm. So Let came to me as an inspiration. It's a pun, because Let's a bard. So it's inspiration. Sorry. I'll stop.
That's okay.
Now.
That's good. Keep it
So
going. You're
let
playing a bard, so I assume puns. Yeah.
yes. So let is an extremely gregarious person. Um, let is I would consider it kind of like a harmless flirt. Let will talk to anyone. Let tends to shower people in compliments.
Mhm.
And because Let is a bard, Let is not the kind of character that will, be standing 60 feet back and casting spells. Let is the kind of character who will support others. And so I had played Let once in a short one shot that we had done. And I am interested in bringing Let into another campaign at some point.
Got it.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of where Let started. Just something fun and different, and really could leverage fun role playing.
Yeah, okay. And when you played this before, what was the thing that you liked the most about playing them? Playing that?
Uh, so I Let spoken rhyme, which I found really enjoyable. Not everything, because that's extremely limiting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that was something that I really enjoyed about Let. Also, Let is a changeling. And historically, at least in the universe in which I had played this one shot,
Mm-hmm.
changelings were kind of notorious. They were seen as untrustworthy and deceptive, obviously because changelings really lend themselves
Mm-hmm.
to uh, dark, shady career paths.
Yep.
And I think the thing that I really enjoyed about Let was that Let did not hide that they were a changeling. They would frequently, in the middle of public places, change the color of their hair, change their stature. And Let really tried to own that and be proud of it,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to trying to hide it and be secretive about it.
Okay. Yeah.
What was actually quite fun about that was in that one shot. By sheer coincidence, someone else had made a changeling and they were like a rogue type. They very much like
The
very
opposite, yeah.
secretive about it. So we had, yeah, very different characters in that way.
That's a lot of fun, though. Okay. Um, let's see here. What does Let look like when they are in their most comfortable form? Like, what does Let usually look like?
Yeah, so Let's favorite form looks quite like a tiefling without horns. So Let is extremely androgynous. You couldn't really look at Let and tell what they are. And it doesn't help that Let takes on various different forms everywhere on the gender spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So Let's favorite form has, let's see, again, kind of looks like a tiefling, has the kind of pointed, narrowed features, the sharp teeth,
Mm-hmm.
no horns, a tail.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see, I couldn't remember. I think the color of their skin, I want to say their skin was like a kind of a lavender color.
Hmm.
And their hair would change quite frequently, but they liked it to be kind of a whitish silver and would have maybe a few streaks in it that were would kind of change colors, almost making it look kind of iridescent.
Hmm.
Again, Let very much likes to be the center of attention, so things that would draw attention to Let would be very appealing to them.
Awesome.
And let's say that, yeah, let's see. Would typically wear just kind of like loose fitting tunic style clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And would always be seen with their instruments on them. So typically their lute.
Lute.
And I would say fairly short statured. Probably about my height. Maybe, yeah, maybe a little bit taller. So somewhere between like 5'2", 5'4".
I always forget that you are that tall because you've got such a big personality that seems to be similar to Let. It will probably have that happen. I was talking to Aaron about it, and I was reminding him who you were this morning, and he was like, how tall is Lee? And I was like, I don't remember. And we were looking at some photos and we were like, oh, right. It's just, he's been doing a lot of 3D printing lately. So I think he was thinking of he's thinking about trying to print some of the characters. It was just kind of funny.
Mm. Yes, I am a short person. I like being a short person, but I am indeed short.
Nope, you're adorable. It's great. Okay. All right. So where does Let come from? Do they have a family? Do they have a clan? Do they have a tribe?
Let's see. So I would say Let is, I haven't really thought about Let's family very much. So let's say Let's a bit of a loner, but you wouldn't guess it
Hmm.
because Let knows everyone
Hmm.
and everyone thinks that they know Let. But Let seems to be under the impression that life is what you make it,
Hmm.
quite literally. So you could talk to seven different people about who Let is, what their backstory is, and what they do. And you would get seven different responses. It's kind of this idea of the more you get to know Let, the less you actually know about them because you come to
Uh,
learn that Let lies.
hmm.
But it's not it's not from this kind of cruel or mean desire to fool people.
Hmm.
It seems more based in this idea that Let doesn't see any reason why their life can't be just whatever they tell it.
Hmm.
Life is to be created and spectated and faked. But let's see. I'm trying to think. Fun fact to the stream: I was trained as a psychologist. One of my favorite one of my favorite parts about character building is trying to think about why characters would be the way that they are.
Yep, that's a
So
lot of
when
the
I think
questions
of
I ask.
So when I think about maybe why Let would be so keen on creating this story about themselves, might be because either they had a tremendously boring and ordinary upbringing that didn't satisfy their need
Hmm.
for attention or adventure, or their upbringing was problematic or traumatic in some way.
Okay.
Shauna, do you have a preference for which one of those we explore?
Well, I'm not always a fan of trauma immediately
Mm-hmm.
meaning conflict or story fodder. I think we
Mm-hmm.
can do just as much with the boring
Yeah.
background. That might actually, I think it would be more challenging because it can be easier to be like, oh, well, Let had a horrifying childhood and therefore they laugh through the pain or something like that, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree with you there. I think I one of my pet peeves in storytelling is when trauma just serves as like this very shallow thing that
I,
doesn't actually amount to anything.
and don't get me wrong, it's a totally valid way to make a background, right? Like
Oh yeah.
Aaron made a character that has a truly ridiculous background, and it's a great story, you know, and it can be. So I'm not saying at all that that's a problem. One thing I forgot to mention Lee earlier was I will. I'll throw out suggestions, so I might say like, well, our Let's Eyes blue or green today, and
Hmm.
I want you to feel free not to pick one of those options. Like, feel free, you know, if you're
Sure.
like, no, they're orange, I'd be like, great. It's just a way of me getting us on the same page about what I'm asking is to give examples. So don't worry about that. So I might say at this
Sure.
point, like, let's pretend we're going the boring route for just a moment. Maybe Let grew up on in like a small village, and their parents are like cobblers, right? And they don't make fun shoes; they make boots and work boots, you know, kind of thing. And you know, we could go down that route, or we could go down the route of Let grew up as a woodcutter's child, and so it was all backwoods and not particularly fun, interesting woods. Like they're basically just woods where you cut down trees, and there aren't a lot of animals or bugs or anything that you could explore. No mystery, no magic. And then so it's a background like that, and then with the shoe one, like maybe somebody's coming through town and they've got the most gorgeous purple high heels or something, and Let is like, "Oh, you can do that," and tries to get the parents to make shoes that are more interesting, and like starts experimenting with color and ends up like dyeing a vat of leather like bright pink or something, and their parents are like, how about you travel more?
Yeah, I like this idea of Let's parents being cobblers. I think there's a really cool opportunity that maybe, rather than, Let's parents being really restrictive out of, again, cruelty or meanness, it's more like we need to make ends meet.
Hmm.
We need to sell shoes that people are willing to buy, and no one's going to be willing to buy purple leather shoes.
Right.
So maybe Let felt this, unintended, but like this really deep level of like, these are the rules and this is the way that things need to be.
Hmm.
And whenever Let would kind of try for things that were more creative or more fun, the parents just kind of wouldn't have it. The idea of like, hey, that's not going to be something that sells.
You're
So I
wasting
think it also makes
resources.
sense
Yeah.
that Yeah, I think it also makes sense that, Let's parents were probably on the lower level of like the economic status. They were
Right.
again really focused on making ends meet. So Let felt really stifled.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had all of this deep creativity. I also really love the idea of purple high heels. Because again, Let doesn't really recognize their own gender. They see themselves as being very gender fluid.
Mm-hmm.
So I could also see situations where, Let tries to create clothes that don't match the gender that, they were assigned.
Right.
And so again, these rules of like, no, this is what you're supposed to wear and this is what you're supposed to make. And Let's like, no, I don't want that though.
Right. That's an interesting idea. You could as easily be like the shoes instead of being purple high heels could be like maybe they I do not know where Let would have seen something like this, but maybe it's a very masculine style shoe that is pink or has little jewels as the fasteners or something, and it's just so utterly ridiculous that no one would do that, right? Where you're from, and but you were instantly like, "That's a great idea. You should don't. You know what else
Right.
you could do?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
something like that."
Exactly.
And then,
I love that.
when do you think the magic started? Do you think it started before Let left home or after?
Let's see. Perhaps with the magic, maybe I don't know. I enjoy Harry Potter a lot, and I love this idea of kind of having this propensity or like these things that would happen that you can't really explain that maybe aren't overtly supernatural or magical in nature, but just seem to be it. So I would maybe think that growing up, Let always was remarkably charismatic, could make their playmates believe anything, could come home 3 hours after curfew and somehow get away with it. And it never occurred to Let that that was something magical in nature. But they just thought that they were just this remarkably charismatic
Oh,
individual.
I like that.
Um,
Okay, yeah.
and then let's see, in terms of when they discovered, like, no, this is actually something that I can harness, there are kind of rules around it. Um, what do you think? I think that perhaps it could intersect pretty well with the idea of Let leaving home and traveling and maybe realizing that there was something more to be learned or channeled there.
That could be a reason she leaves home. Or sorry, they leave home. Ugh, Jesus.
Hmm.
I tried not to say he earlier, then said she. I could lose
Let
my
takes
mind.
no offense.
Good.
To be
Thank you.
fair, Let would feel comfortable with any pronoun as
Yeah.
long as as long as it is not strictly assigned to he or she.
Right, right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's say that could be a reason they leave home, right? Like there's one day where let's use your curfew idea. Let comes home 3 hours after curfew. You know, Papa Let is in the living room being like, "What, young lady?" And Let somehow spins some story just in sort of desperation, right? Like they're not going to be beaten or
Hmm.
anything, but just like, I have to get away with this, and they do, and they wake up the next morning and they're like, "Wait, is this a trick?" And Papa Let's like, "Nope, you're not in trouble," and Let's like, "Well, hang on," and then maybe starts to experiment in town. Like tries to get somebody to buy a truly ridiculous pair, like some failed experiment of Let's where they were trying to make them pink and they turned like bright red or whatever, and they managed to
Hmm.
to match the most unlikely shoes with the most unlikely person and sell those, even though that would
Right.
it's super unlikely. Maybe they go have like a maybe they spend a little while convincing playmates of things that aren't true. Like when I was a lot younger, one of our friends truly believed that spaghetti cured cancer because we were mean kids.
Truly. Oh.
Very intelligent human, but very trusting, and so yeah, they have learned their lesson. But maybe it was something like that. Let convinces the playmates of something, and they sort of start leveling things up until it's getting to the point where what if it gets to the point where like maybe there's an accident or maybe Let just puts the pieces together and is like, okay, there's enough happening here that I don't have the right knowledge to continue down this path. Like maybe there's a
Mhm.
close scare or something, and Let's like, all right, well, no one here can teach me, obviously, so I'm gonna go find somebody to teach me. That seems to match with Let's personality because they seem like a go-getter. They seem like a if this isn't working, I'm going to do something else.
Yeah, for sure. I think there could be a component as well of like maybe there are like ethical concerns too,
Yeah.
because like, Let comes home bringing home hordes of money because they've managed to sell
Yes.
these absurdly, expensive, ridiculous shoes to these people. And Let's parents are like, we appreciate the money, but you can't be doing this.
Right.
Either maybe they have, maybe they're concerned about their reputation or concerned that at one point these people are going to wake up and be like, I got, conned into buying these shoes. But I think that the combination of Let being like, I need to learn more about this. There's basically more to life for me than being here and selling shoes. But the
Hmm.
combination of if I explore this, this is going to turn on me or on my family or something like that.
Okay. That sounds really good. What if that sounds like a really good reason to leave home is like, I need to learn more about this. What if Let doesn't come down on one side or the other about whether or not it's right or wrong? Like, there are too many examples
Mm-hmm.
where it's right, identical examples where it's wrong. And so it might not be the single driving force behind Let going out and staying out in the world, but maybe it's sort of an undercurrent of like, well, is this wrong if I convince this person to let us through this locked door so I can steal all their money?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would think that Let has very flexible ideas on what is ethical and not, hence an entire life built on fabrication. I think any sense of it would come more out of concern for Let's parents, which is like Let's parents are the ones who are like, you can't be doing this. And
Right.
Let's like, I don't know, it seems to be working for me.
Yes.
Um,
Okay. Yep.
so yeah, I very much like the idea that Let's like, well, if it works and these people are happy with their purchase for now, it's not my fault if they wake up one day and they're not anymore, kind of thing.
I really like that. That can also provide some really interesting opportunities for any GM you work with to put conundrums in front of you where it's like, okay, well, you could get a pile of gold if you sell one of your party members a home like keepsake.
Hmm.
Would you do that? It's the one thing they have from a home that burned down, and they can't remember their parents, and this is all they have left. Would you sell it for 1,000 gold? That kind of thing. Like the GM can.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good opportunity there.
I think so. I think as well, historically, I've created characters that were either good or evil. And
Hmm.
while I don't necessarily think that alignments have to be super prescriptive for the character, I think it can be like a good common language to describe what a character is. And I could very much see Let being like a chaotic neutral. Like sometimes Let does this thing that like saves the day, and sometimes Let does the thing that Let feels like doing in that moment.
Right.
But it definitely is based in this kind of sense of chaos where Let really has no rules for how it is that people should exist. They just kind of go with whatever, is uh whatever their muse is in that moment.
Yeah, whatever's interesting at that particular moment.
Hmm.
This is a
Which I
very
think,
interesting
like you
character
said,
concept.
I think it lends itself to really fun role play.
Yeah, I think so
Also
too.
perhaps problematic in large groups potentially, but
Yeah, it
I've
might
managed to
be.
play a lawful evil character in my current group, and it's been going pretty well. So
I've noticed that the only characters that really don't seem to mesh well with other humans are chaotic evil. Like
hmm.
that one just there's you just do the opposite of whatever anybody else wants. Like it's with that one, so it's not terribly useful. But
Yeah.
all right, I'm trying to think of story hooks here. I could very easily see us creating a conflict where Let has to make a choice, and like what would be the most interesting outcome from that, because
Hmm.
thinking of a situation where there isn't a right choice, it's very ambiguous, and like seeing what Let does with that. And I'm wondering if it should be something high stakes, like somebody could die if Let makes one decision or another, or whether it should be low stakes, like there's a singing competition and
Hmm.
with ridiculous requirements, and like how far will Let go to do X, Y, or Z. That might be interesting.
Hmm.
Or let me think, what else? I've also been trying to think of a magic item for you, and I just think Let is just got so much going on. The first thing I thought of was like some sort of magical item that cancels out pieces of what you can do, which would be
Interesting.
yeah. And my first thought was like, well, how would that be useful to Let? And then I was like, it doesn't have to be useful, you know?
That's true. I think because Let has a lot of So, if Let's kind of driven by whatever they're feeling in the moment
Hmm.
and they aren't necessarily super self-interested, I think having a almost like a contradictory item, like an item that has like dual functions, whether it's like, oh, you can, I don't know, boost when it's used, it can boost this particular skill, but it hurts this particular skill, or
Ah,
something
yeah.
like it
Yeah.
it it hurts you and benefits you at the same time, which I think is kind
Maybe,
of the nature of Let as a person.
so maybe it makes you more charismatic, but your dexterity is terrible, so you end up being really slow.
Right. Or even something I could see, so so when I rolled this character, I got extremely high rolls, so we can also like adjust some of these if needed.
Oh
I
yeah, you
could
did.
potentially see a benefit of having having a skill that maybe wouldn't necessarily always be helpful to Let, but
Hmm.
may in one particular moment. So Let's not strong. But what if it had an item that for a moment gave Let like, a +4 modifier on strength.
Yeah.
So, it ends up lending itself to those moments, but doesn't, I don't know.
No,
But like
that's a
kills
very
their
interesting. But kills
oh,
what?
sorry, go ahead.
But kills
Their
their
dexter
dexter
or
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 something.
even their charisma, that thing that Let
Oh,
has spent their entire life
what
leaning on.
what if it kills their wisdom? So all of a sudden, their ability to make good decisions kind of goes out the window. Like Let has a very
Oh,
interesting, so part of Let's decision making process is their sense of morals and ethics and values and blah blah blah. But some of it is like, would this be smart? Would it be smart to lift this giant rock, know that it will only be held up in the air for 10 seconds, and then
right.
like I have to pick it up before I can decide what to do with it. So is it really a good idea to pick this up because I only have 10 seconds to make a decision, and I know I'm gonna get a little dumber.
I think that's actually a really great idea because as charismatic as Let is, Let relies on this idea of means to an end, right? Let does what Let feels like in order to accomplish certain things. And I imagine wisdom uh would be the base stat for, is this thing that I'm trying to do going to get me the result that I want?
Yeah,
And so Let having to compromise on their wisdom, I think would actually be really entertaining, to be
very
honest.
interesting. Yeah,
That's a magical item that would, again, it would take a lot of wisdom to decide whether or not Let wanted to use it. But as soon as they did, would they still be able to make the same kind of decisions that they would have when they decided to use the item?
yeah. That would be very interesting. All right, how do we get this? You can either have it and we do an adventure, you can get it from an adventure, or it shows up in an adventure and you have to use it. There's no real rules there.
Uh,
Also, what would
I
it
am
look
open
like?
to whatever you want.
I wonder
Let's
if it's
see.
like a loot. Okay, I know that guitars have these things that you clip onto it and it changes all the strings.
Oh yeah, capo.
Do lutes have that?
I don't see why it wouldn't. I've never played a lute, but let's see what other
What other things could
uh
it be?
I'm trying to
Um,
think as well of what it could be, like a particular pick. So I'm not even sure
hmm
if lutes are played because they're like the picks that you hold in your hands, and there are
hmm
also picks that like attach to your fingertips. So when you pluck them, it's like basically replaces having very long nails.
Right.
Let's see what other
That's an interesting
equipment.
idea too.
Yeah, so I have at my level 1, yeah, I have my lute. Let me see. There's a lute pickup thing.
We can just make it a thing.
We could make it a thing. I'm very okay with that. Also, so lutes certainly have fretboards,
Yep.
and if it has a fretboard, a capo should work. So I think either one could work.
Which one are you more drawn to?
Um, I like the idea of it being a capo because a capo changes the tuning of a guitar, and that feels metaphorically very appropriate because Let has to change the tune of how they function in the world when they use the capo. So I like that very much.
And do we want this magic item to take effect for like 30 seconds or like a minute until dawn the next day, or
Oh,
like the
let's
time
see.
period? It would it could be OP for strength, but it could be balanced out by the decrease in wisdom. Like would it be more entertaining for it to be a momentary thing, like a short time frame? Because even in combat, if Let decided to use it, like 30 seconds is many, many rounds of combat. 1 minute is basically a fight, or it can be. So like, or would it be more interesting for it to be sort of a daily item? Like you use it and then for the entire day you're super strong, but you are not going to make great decisions. Because game playing, that would be very interesting. Because if you're playing you're playing a campaign, right? Like, yeah, you play 2, 3, 4 hours every week or a couple of weeks or whatever. But in game that can be like 6 weeks. Where you're still in the same day. So that might make it less interesting to play.
Right. Let's see. I think perhaps like a half day would be a good compromise where it's meaningful. But it won't, the likelihood of it taking several weeks at a time is pretty low. Without deviating too much, this is something that occurred to me.
Yeah.
It would be much more role-playing focused than it would be any kind of level of combat focused.
Oh, I agree.
But I was trying to think of what would be something that would be like devastating to Let, like what would be something that they would gain and something they would have to exchange. I think again this would be more role-playing focused, but another possibility for the downside of this item is that Let is locked into a particular type of appearance for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, that would be very interesting.
It definitely has less implications for combat or what can actually be done in the campaign. But I imagine what that would do for Let would be to take this thing that's like a core pillar of their identity and throw it out the window. It changes the way that every NPC will interact with Let, because Let is no longer this, constantly changing, charismatic, bouncy little thing. And Let is whatever the DM rolls them to be, which could be, I think, another fun. It's very role play heavy, but it's just, I think, another possibility if we decide we don't like the, strength buff wisdom hit kind of thing.
No, I really like that idea. Because I really like the magic items to be unique to the person. So I think the idea of having something that affects such a core piece of Let is perfect. I was reaching, right, with the wisdom thing. It gets an interesting thing, but I love this idea that Let is stronger for, let's say, half a day, but for 2 weeks they have to live in a certain body appearance thing.
Right. And I think what could make that interesting for me as a player in the group is that I don't get to pick what that body is. It's a DM.
Oh, I'm sorry. One moment, please.
Oh, that's all right. Sure.
Sorry, I think she woke herself up out of a nap.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry, bud. Come here. Come in. Hi, you're safe. This is Lee. You know Lee. You like Lee. Yeah. You okay?
Hello.
You silly pup. Here, come here. Lay down. Sorry about that. All right.
Oh, sure. The idea that go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
If it's okay, the idea for that came from a group that I had for D&D, where in character building we kind of passed around this sheet where we got to select various things that were part of our backgrounds. Little did I know that one of the things that I selected was like, this strange occurrence happened in your past, and when that had happened, the DM rolled some dice and was like, okay, you fell into a swamp, and it entirely changed the nature of you. So you are now a Triton paladin female, and it ended up creating this character that I loved, because there under no circumstances would I have ever created this character, but I was forced to be that character because of the character building. So the idea of having the DM decide you will be this thing for 2 weeks, I think it would be again a very deep challenge for Let as a character, but really fun as a person playing in the campaign to be forced to play something different. It would make me very careful about when I wanted to use that item.
It's really interesting hearing you talk about this, because actually I find that a lot of players wouldn't feel that way. Like they like if you mess with their characters, they get, one of Aaron's characters is green and it bugs him, and so you'd have to find a GM in a party that would be able to handle this well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You want to work
Right.
with people that you trust, because I could see many ways that somebody could take advantage of this in a negative way for the player. So
Mm-hmm.
the disclaimer for that is, if you do use
Sure.
this in the future, I want you to make sure that you work with a GM that's not going to be a butthead about it. But if that's appealing to
Yeah.
you as a player, I think it is a very interesting character thing. The idea that Let can take any form, and usually takes that form in, well, sorry, let me ask this. Does Let usually take those forms in response to something? Or is it on, I don't want to say on a whim, like it is just a whim, but it's more like a, I want pink hair today. Like, what's the impetus for them changing?
I would say there's a component of it that is kind of this is what I feel like looking like today. I think Let also has a penchant for kind of entertaining people or making them laugh or making them uncomfortable. I think Let enjoys seeing reactions from people, whatever those reactions might be. So Let might, change themselves into an extremely attractive, like high elf or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, just to get the nature of how people would react to them differently. But I would say of course, there are circumstances where when Let has a goal in mind and
Mm-hmm.
Let can be aware of, if I change myself into this particular way, it will help me in my goal.
Mm-hmm.
I would very much see them using their shape shifting as, I'm going to disguise myself as a guard in order to get into this, locked off area of the city or something.
Yeah, so that would be really interesting too, because I would imagine that Let would take those forms deliberately, know what they were getting into, and be sort of ready for it. But to have this change be something they couldn't prepare for might be very interesting. You could play against that too, right? Like, well,
Hmm.
I don't want to be a boy dwarf today. I want to be a high elf, and instead you have to be a dwarf. Like, that kind of thing would
Right.
be interesting.
Yeah, I think that the novelty would originally be very appealing to Let. So, say for the first day,
Hmm.
Let's like, cool, I've never thought to be a dwarf before. This is fun. Oh,
Right.
look at my big clunky feet. And then after a day or two, Let's like, I can't change. And this
Right.
is so frustrating because I no longer have the flexibility of being able to morph myself into whatever my goal is and whatever will get me there. So I think it'll also end up forcing Let to use other types of other means in order to get what Let needs, when historically maybe they would have just changed into something.
All right. What do you think about dropping into an adventure where Let has had this, has just picked this up, used it, realized they're very strong, and has realized they can't change shape? They don't know whether or not it's permanent yet. We'll say it's near the end of the 2 weeks, so we might have that reveal moment where Let is like, "But I want pink hair," and their hair turns pink. You know,
Okay, yeah, for sure.
what if we had you pair up with an NPC that knows this whole story, right? Like, was with you when you found, you guys have, you folks have been traveling together for a little while. You you are on a job, sort of, like, we can say it's a sort of a job, and let's say it's a long term, not guarding a caravan. Maybe it's getting some really exotic ingredients for some witch on the other side of the mountain, and it involves things like, toad toes and the 10th pearl on a string from the third daughter of the richest man in town, or something like that. Like, truly ridiculous
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, and I like the combination of just things that you could stumble across versus things that there is no way you're going to get this without bribing or conning or something someone,
Right.
which I think plays into Let's strengths.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. If that sounds appealing, we can. I think I can whip that up. I usually take a break around now,
sure.
because I have been sitting in this chair for 2 hours and it's very difficult for me to hold still. Um, and that'll give me 5 or 10 minutes to think about what I'm going to do next. And this is something that GMs can do, right? Like, if you get to a point in a game, any GM or any player that's like, I just cannot make this decision, call a break, go refresh
Hmm.
drinks, walk around the house once, play with the dog, get a drink, right? Like I already said that one. Go to the bathroom, something, and sometimes just a change in environment can shake loose an idea, or something like this, right? Like this could be a moment where a player's turned left instead of right, and instead of like panicking and being like, I have to come up with something on the spot. I usually call breaks. I'm like, you know what? I need 10, 15 minutes. Then I go away and I throw some stuff at the wall, see what sticks. So you feeling all right for a break? Is that okay?
Absolutely. I could use a little snack.
Does this work? Would you like 10 or 15 minutes? Usually ends up
Um,
being something like 15 minutes.
let's aim for 10, but 15 is acceptable because
Okay.
then, there's no pressure.
Okay, so we'll be back about half an hour after the hour for those of you
That
that
sounds
live
great.
all over the world. Um, so yeah, stream will be back in about 15 minutes or 10, 15 minutes. See you in a little bit.
Hello, friends.
Hello, Stream. We're back. All right, so before the break, we decided that we were going to have picked up the item, which is you called it a capo?
Yes, a capo.
Isn't that the name of a kid in a animated film?
Is it? I don't know.
Absolutely should have looked this up on the break.
When I hear capo, I think of Kupo and I think of Moogles.
Maybe Kupo is what I'm thinking of. Yes, Kupo is totally what I'm thinking of. Okay, good. Because that was important. All right, so you've picked up the capo, you've used it, so you've got the master strength. I actually don't know how to roll for a character.
What do you mean?
I'm gonna do, like you said, roll for the figure.
Oh, the base stats.
Yeah.
Stuff?
No, not the base stats.
Gotcha.
We were saying that with the capo,
I
you'd
see.
use it like the.
Yeah. So what has been done kind of in the past is that I've seen at least is that there's just kind of like you could even do like a randomizer because they have like some fun ones that are online for people who want to have randomized characters where it'll give a kind of gender, class, and race, and it's like associated with like a D12, I think usually. So then what you would do is essentially just kind of roll for it and be like, okay, well, you are this now, although it wouldn't be class because I'm still a Bart. I'll just look very different. So maybe we could roll for race, roll for gender, and then roll for height, roll for hair color. I think that's all stuff that we could do. I can even come up with a little sheet right now.
That would probably be good because you'll want to use that moving forward.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Gender, we'd have to use a D4 for, I think.
Yes, let's see.
Call it male, female, androgynous, and NB.
Yep, okay. All right, so we'll go 1 female, 2 androgynous, 3 NB, and then 4 is male.
Okay.
And then for our, let me see.
Hair color could be a D8 because you could do red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, and white.
Yeah, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, white. Oh, that would be perfect.
That 7?
Yeah, D8.
No, that's 8. Yeah. You could always
I did the same thing.
You could always do a D20 and like make up all of these random colors, but just for quickness's sake.
Right, and let's see. I know my brother has sent me one of these before. So let's do a D20 for race because there's one that I found that has
perfect
human, gnome, elf, half elf, dragonborn, half orc, tiefling, halfling, dwarf,
Aarakocra. Yeah, Aarakocra. Yeah.
That's a new one to me.
It's a bird person. Aaron's playing one right now.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I can either. I'm going to save this real quick. Or I can just write it down, I think. Might take a second, though.
I'll go for it.
Human, gnome, elf, half elf, dragonborn, half orc, tiefling, halfling dwarf, Aarakocra, Goliath. What's a Genasi?
A Genasi is an elemental. So like the very first one of these, the race was an air Genasi. So they're less humanoid and they're more associated with. I've seen it traditionally the 4 elements, right? Like earth, fire, air, water. But I can see some arguments for some weirder ones like steam or whatever.
Oh, okay, cool. That sounds interesting.
It's fun. It has some interesting mechanics to it.
So one question that's relevant would be, do we want, whenever I take on a new shape, does that change my language at all? Because like it would be super interesting to come across like a dragonborn who doesn't speak Draconic.
I would think, mechanically speaking, you wouldn't learn the new language because that would be.
Right.
But for you, that would be interesting if you did it. What if you understood the language but you couldn't speak it?
That would make sense. I'd be down for both, honestly, because it would just
Yeah.
be like, I think, a strange thing in the world. Again, it doesn't necessarily
No, it
have to change anything about the character.
it has a really interesting, because like let's say Let is suddenly an Aarakocra and they're like, what the hell is this? And the person they're with is like, you're an Aarakocra, it's a bird person. And then you run into another Aarakocra, maybe let's never run into it, but you run into another Aarakocra and they start talking to you in whatever that language is, and you're like like you have to like get out of that situation somehow. Like it turns out the very next person you have to talk to is that race and tries to talk to you in that language. It's like, damn it.
Okay, cool. So we have our list of 20, and that would be a D20 of all the different potential races we could be.
Okay. You said height.
Yeah, I think, let me see. That would end up depending a lot on what my race ends up being. So perhaps that could
Let's
just
just
be
do
like
average.
a D.
What if we
Yeah,
just
if
did
we
an
could even-
average for that race?
An average, yeah, that could be fine.
Yeah.
That
Although,
would
like,
work.
having an Aarakocra that was 2 feet high would be very interesting as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering though if it might be like maybe like a D4 where like a 1 is like extremely short, like being a human who's like 4'11. Like
So-
that is widely regarded as a very short human.
Right.
But like so that would be like a 1, and then the 4 on the D4 would be like exceptionally tall. So like a 6'8" human, and the 2 and the 3 would be like lower end of average and upper end of average kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that idea because then instead of because all the races are different heights, right? So it's like having a 2-foot elf would what the hell? So instead of assigning it a height, giving it a category makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Also, you are totally welcome to steal this item and place it anywhere in your other existing campaigns, because this is a cool item.
I might. This it's one of the weird things about Azinlia is that magic items show up a lot, and I'm toying with the idea of taking them away a lot as well. But to do that, I'd want to have stuff to keep playing with. And the reason I'm thinking about that is because often people will get magic items and then they will forget about them. So to have like the it just could be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, this could be something that someone really wants, and so maybe I have a campaign for treasure hunting, and maybe they get commissioned to go find this because somebody really wants it, and of course the bard's going to play with it on the way.
Right.
Having a bard halfling be super strong, but suddenly be a dragonborn with the charisma he has would be terrible. So I definitely have to give this to Treasure Tuesday. Great, good to know.
Perfect.
Is that enough rolls?
Let's see.
Yes.
I don't think we necessarily need to go with like eye color. I think that's we can just kind of
Hand wave it.
select one.
Yep. Okay.
Yep, hand wave.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am ready. I'm also really genuinely curious what all of these different races are, because there are plenty I haven't seen before.
Okay, I rolled a 4 on D20. What's that?
Okay, we're a half elf.
And that half elf is 1, so super tall.
Oh, okay. I had it flipped, but 1 being
No,
the
no,
highest
that's fine.
end. I'm very okay with that. Okay, cool,
Sorry, I
'cause that
thought-
was what I wrote down.
No,
So, a
1 is
particularly short half elf.
particularly short half elf. They are 4 on gender.
Okay, we are male now,
Great.
or presenting as male, I should say. Let's heart is still let.
And a 3 on hair color.
So yellow, I imagine that would be blonde.
Oh, well, do you want it to be blonde or do you want it to just be like
Fluorescent
fluorescent yellow?
Ooh. I think what would be, we'll say maybe Let actually got the blonde hair but dyed it yellow out of desperation of having some kind of
Something
difference in
shiny.
their
Yeah.
appearance. Yeah,
Got it.
they
Yep.
needed something.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's what you're looking like. So I imagine that the how this happened is we'll figure out how you got the capo at some point. But you play in your lute, and all of a sudden you are a very short half elf, male half elf with blonde hair, and you're like, the heck. And you're the NPC I'm going to give you to travel with you's name is Bix. He is
Bix? Okay.
he's one of those humans that doesn't have a particularly memorable face, hair color, height. He's average height. He's average everything, and he's not a thief.
Okay.
He's
That's
he's
all I
not,
know about Bix.
that he's not
They're
a
just
thief.
not a thief. He's not a thief. Okay.
Swears he's not a thief. He doesn't know how he got this. He's not a thief. Yeah, he's one of those.
Okay. Got it.
And you've been traveling with him, we'll say, for, well, at least for about 2 weeks. So he was with you when this happened, and when it happened, he's like, oh, that must be a magic item. Or that must be magic or something. It can't just change you. What else can it do? And you guys run a bunch of experiments over the next, like, day. And then the next day, you're like, pink hair, no pink hair. And the next day, you're like, pink hair, no pink hair. And the next day, so it takes some time for you to get to the point where you're like, ugh. Now, would Let be, like, really angry about this, super thrilled about, like, what's Let's reaction when they realize it's not, you can't change anymore?
Right. So I would say initially, initially Let's like, this is so cool. I get, this is a randomizer now. But now Let's trying to change, and I would say Let's kind of like feigning, like, oh, this is fine. It's all going to be fine. But they're deeply like very concerned that this core aspect of their identity has been taken from them. So on the outside, maybe talking to Bix, Let's like, this is fine. It'll all work out eventually. These magical things, they never really last all that long. I wonder if Let would actually be aware of that. Do you think Let would be familiar with the duration of magical curses or whatever this item would imbue upon him?
I think Let would know. I think between them, Bix and Let would know that if it were just a magic item, and I think they would figure out fairly quickly that you have a great strength. That a lot of magic items have drawbacks, but they're usually not permanent. And so once you, I think the nature of your experiments are to figure out what benefit it gave you, to determine whether it's a magic item or a cursed item.
I see.
If it's a cursed item, those are largely evil and bad things happen.
Yes. And would this increase in strength have changed the way that my body actually looks? Or do I just have this freakish strength for being a slight person?
Yeah, so I am not a huge fan of big muscles equal strength. My husband many years ago was about as big as a stick. He was super thin, and he could pick up a car. So, like, muscles do not equal strength in my mind.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I like that.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, in these experiments, I learned that I have this. I don't know what my actual modifier is, but I imagine having like a base stat of like 18 or 19, maybe 20 if we're trying to make this like an insanely strong item. So in these experiments, I learned, and I'm, again, I hope that's okay. I typically, when I play as my character, I will use the first person.
Yes, please do.
Okay, great. So, as I'm talking with Bix, I'm like, this is no big deal. I'm sure this will wear off before we even get back home. But constantly throughout the day, I'm like, I'm going to change my nails pink. And nothing happens. So I'm constantly trying to test it out of anxiety, I think.
I think Bix would be like, well, maybe you're thinking about it too hard. Just relax. Try yoga. Like truly ridiculous things, right?
I would say if you mean relaxed, like stop freaking out about it. I'm not freaking out. Why do you think I'm freaking out? But
Well,
if you mean relaxed, like calm down, that's just not in my nature.
yeah. Bix is like, no, you just keep checking your nails. Like it's okay. Like this isn't gonna hurt the job or anything. Like it'll wear off eventually. And they're trying to be helpful, and they're not helpful at all.
Yeah. I'm not I'm not trying to change them. I'm admiring my new hands. It's a
Yeah,
lie.
yeah. Bix does not notice. Um, I think this job that you've got is a long job, so it's you really do have to travel all over Hell and Beyond to find these kinds of items. So you were planning on being with Bix for a couple of months, and um, so I think you folks know each other fairly well, and so you're moving on to the next town, and we'll say it's been 12 days out of the 2 week period, the 14-day period.
Hmm.
And you're approaching this town, and you're on the outskirts. You're about to head in, and Bix turns to you, and they're looking at the list. Um, what should they be picking up? I want it to be something silly, like that pearl idea, or like the the left tooth of a local tiefling who has pink blue skin.
Hmm.
Maybe. Does what do you think?
Yeah, I like that because when I think of pink blue, I think of like a lavender, and
Mm-hmm.
that would be like
Ah, yes.
that would hit a sore spot because like that's Let's favorite presentation, and now they have to go find someone that looks like Let and steal their tooth.
That's probably why I thought of the tiefling popped out of my mouth too, because you kept describing that as the tiefling without the horns. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think Bix would be muttering over the list and be like, "Left tooth. What is that? My left or their left? And like, there's more than one left tooth in a tiefling, right? Like, what the heck does this mean?"
Well, tieflings, they've got at least what I've seen, they get those little sharp canines, and when I think of the tooth, that's what I think of. It's
Well,
the most prominent one.
well, is that what it means? Because all it says is left tooth. Does it mean? Why doesn't it say the left canine? And again, their left or my left? What are we supposed to get? You know what we could do? We could just take all
Take
their
them both.
teeth, just all
Yeah,
of them. That's what we could
that
do.
sounds like the safer way to go.
I
Yes,
agree. Yeah, great. Okay.
I see. Now, where did we get this list?
So I think there is a witch on the other side of the mountain that is
Hmm.
trying really hard to set herself up as a fearsome witch, but is actually
I
rather
see.
timid, and is probably pretty highborn, but has decided to go the witch route because they have magic, and that's kind of what they've always been told that they have to do. So they have a lot of money. So instead, they hit on this idea of, instead of getting all of these ingredients themselves to make these fancy potions and whatnot, they're going to hire people. And so they put
See.
out a notice, as one who is fancy and doesn't know how the word works does, posted it in their shop window. And I think they're the kind of witch that like goes real into appearance. So it's all like a black paint everywhere and deep dark shadows. And instead, she's
Mhm.
rather adorable,
I see. I
and
like
tries really hard to be like, "Nah, I'm a scary witch," and people are like, "There's a blonde curl coming out of your hat," and she's like, that kind of thing.
it.
But for Bix and Let, it's just easy money, right? Like, go get items that are, con people out of stuff. Totally. And it's a weird list, right? Like, you need the 15th coin in the purse of the 7th person you run into on the road. You need to
Mhm.
pick, like, it's all really, really random stuff. And I think Bix and Let looks at it at the beginning, and they kind of look at each other, and they're like, want to team up? Like, we could do this together. And that might be how they got started on it.
I see. So, a question that I would have would be, well, maybe this is something I can even ask Bix. Do you think the witch even knew? I mean, if the witch is trying to make a recipe, right? Recipes tend to be specific. And so
Hmm.
any vagueness would have to be intentional unless she's just a particularly dumb witch.
Bix goes, nah. You ever seen one of those spells? They're all kooky. Like they're like it's like your mama, right? Back in the day, she'd make that special stew and she'd say, put in a pinch of salt. What's a pinch? I think it's more like that. Like you put in, there's just a placeholder for what actually needs to go in, and the person who writes the recipe, like, knows exactly what it is, but nobody else does, and it's like mama's secret ingredients or whatever. You know what I mean? I think it's more like that.
Yeah, the thing that's concerning to me with this particular situation is that the stakes are a little bit higher. And you see, I'm not a brewer of potions and
Yeah,
things
no,
like
me
that. I
neither,
don't.
yeah.
And the question is, if it's a left molar as opposed to my left or stage left,
Right.
is that going to blow us up? Are we not going to get? Oh, I don't want to not get paid. I like this idea of just getting all the teeth.
Yeah, I think that's safest. I think you and Bix have made the safest choice a couple of times. So, like, the fella where it's the 15th coin, right? Like, I think Bix probably lost count somewhere in there. You knock out the dude, you take his purse, and you'll give the rest back. You just want the 15th coin. And Bix loses count and is like, gonna keep all of it. She'll be able to tell which one's the 15th, right? Or maybe it's the 15th she has to get, right? Like maybe she has to get
Right.
to 15 because I can't count more than
Mm.
10. So 2 tenths
So
is tough. That kind of thing.
yeah, so my thought here would be, you know, with that coin, that 15th coin, right? Like that was easy. We just got to knock someone out and take their coin purse, and they wake up, think they just got robbed, none the wiser. How are we supposed to take a tooth without killing someone? Now, don't get me wrong, killing's not off the books for me. But that being said, killing tends to draw a lot of attention, and I'm not quite as slippery as I used to be, being a little bit more locked into how I look.
And Bix says, "Yeah, how's that going, by the way? You managed to change your nails or anything yet? You still got that hair."
I mean, at least I'm still good looking, but no, I have
Yep,
not made any progress whatsoever.
yeah, that could be a problem because you can't really like do that changey thing you do. You kind of stand out. I really think you should go my route. And if he stands too still, he kind of blends into the background. He's like the closest thing you can get to invisible without an invisible spell when he's in a crowd. He's like, you might want to
Right.
think about this someday as trying to be normal and blend.
I would say this Let gets like a very stern expression and says, I have compromised on my race and I will not compromise on my attire. Because Let is dressed quite fancifully.
And Bix is like, all right, well, let's see here. I would imagine pulling all of the teeth out of somebody's mouth would kill them. But what if we, I don't know, what if we bought it off them, or tricked him out of it, or something? Or maybe we could find a local witch that could tell us which tooth it is. And we just get that one.
I think there's also the possibility now. I don't know how you feel about taking another companion along with us back to the witch, but is this the last of the ingredients we need to gather before heading back to her?
He looks at Liz and he's like, no, we have so many. We could come back this way, but I think we have to get them in this order.
I see. Because my thought is, what if we were to convince this individual that giving up, well, coming with us is advantageous to them? We bring them to the witch grabs the tooth for certain, and then we send this individual on their merry way.
But what if we have to do these in this order, wouldn't we have to have the teeth in this order? And does this person coming along with us mean we have the teeth, or do they have the teeth? Like, how's that work? This is more my left or your left. Bix is getting a little upset. They're like, I usually just get hired to steal the family jewels so they can get insurance. This is stupid.
Oh, relax, my friend. Think about it. You and I are working together, yes? And we have
Yeah.
several things on this list already, and it's not in
Yeah.
my possession or yours, it's in our party's possession. Now, if
Ah.
this individual were to join our party, then it would be in our party's possession whether or not it was in their mouth or not.
And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what else we could do is you could just keep using that capo thing until you become a purple tiefling. We'll just take some of your teeth.
Well, let me think. Let's see. I don't think. Oh, yeah, Let doesn't have exceptionally high intelligence, so I don't know how great they would be at statistics trying to figure out the likelihood of getting a tiefling with lavender skin. um,
Yeah, I think Let's probably intelligent. I don't know that it's an intelligence thing. How likely do you think Let is to use this again, knowing that it changed everything, locked them into that change, and doesn't seem to be usable again right now, right? Like it doesn't do anything when they use
right.
it now.
Right. So once they use the capo again, it doesn't, does it change the appearance? Sorry, I want to make sure I understand when you say it doesn't do anything now.
So I think the way this is going to work is you use the capo for half a day. You've got +4 to your strength modifier, no matter what it started with. Like your strength's at -1, it'd still be a +4.
Hmm.
And then for 2 weeks, you can't change at all. And then at the end of it, you'll
Right.
pop back to your last shape. But I was thinking it should recharge by the next day, which means somebody else could use it, get half day, then they
Right.
get stuck.
Right. Okay. So by using this again, I would have to wait until a period, or can I just keep using it and then rapidly shifting?
No, there's nothing that will
Okay.
change your appearance. Like, I think if you ran into the same spell that turned Aaron's character green, I don't think you'd turn green.
I see. Okay.
I don't think
So
anything
I
would
am
affect your
stuck.
appearance, really. Yeah,
Okay, I am stuck with this.
yeah.
Um,
But you don't know that, right? Like, the only thing you know
right.
is it gives you super strength for a little while. That when you try to use it again, it does nothing. Doesn't give you super
Mhm.
strength, doesn't change anything. And you don't know when this is going to end, currently.
Right. So remind me of Bix's question again. I think Bix had said something along the lines of, if we use it again, do you think we could change you into that tiefling that you're looking to be?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right.
Well, don't get me wrong. There is nothing in this world that I would love more than to be back into a lavender skinned tiefling. That being said, we've tried to use this before in our experiments, and I don't believe that I'm able to change again. We could change other people. No, well, then we're just getting back to the same problem all over again.
And Bix is like, all right, well, how about we scope out this tiefling and see what's what. Like, we gotta find a lavender tiefling in this particular town anyway. Like, we might run into a problem where there isn't one, and we have to wait until one gets here. You know, that's how some of these weird things work, right?
Oh, now wouldn't that be a bother?
Well, it's never been a problem before. If we keep following this list, I think it's sort of fated or something to have what we need in the along the journey. You know, let's try it.
All right, let's give it a go. Well, let's see. I wonder, do we want to, how large is the city that we're coming into, or town?
I think it's big enough to have like 3 or 4 taverns, a couple churches.
Okay,
You know, a mayor.
okay, okay. So in that case, do you think that it would be, would you think that it would make the most sense for us to go hunting, or do you think that we should try and bring the people to us? I will, like a big smile and pull out my loot.
What do you mean, bring the people to us?
Well, no one can resist a public performance.
Oh, you're gonna do that thing where you make people look at us again, aren't you?
You are welcome to stand in the back.
Okay. Where are we gonna do this? We gonna do this at an inn, or you want to do this just in the middle of the street like that one time?
That one time was fun, wasn't it?
No,
Admit it. You even
no,
enjoyed yourself.
absolutely not. We got chased for half a day. That was awful.
Well, we could make coin if we went to an inn. If we were in public, we would just rely on the kindness of others, and that hasn't always gotten us very far now, has it?
And Bick says, "Yeah, we do have that purse from the witch, but she warned us not to use it anywhere. And I tried one time, and it just turned into a wooden penny. So yeah, we and they pat another pocket, and they're like, yeah, we could probably use some cash. Let's." And they kind of look at you sideways, and they're like, I mean, we could get cash in a crowd on the street, but maybe that's not the attention you want to draw. And you've noticed before that Bix has definitely picked pockets. I think you've definitely got him
Yeah.
doing that. And he says, I'm not a thief. It was just, just happened.
Well, Bix, why don't we lean into your talents with that remarkable way you have of finding coins that have been dropped on the ground?
Yeah, that
I'll
happens.
head to the nearest inn. Perhaps, we could make an arrangement. If we're going to be staying here for a while, perhaps I could talk to the innkeep. We'll perform this evening, perhaps get room and board comped.
Sounds great.
Kind of looking around town. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like they have too many entertainers here.
So Bix is gonna scope around town, see if they can find it. You're gonna talk to the innkeeper, see if they can tell you anything. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Now, normally, if the NPC I'm playing would be another player, and this would be what the GM calls splitting the party. And there are some GMs that are like never split the party. Frankly, if you're going to go up against two monsters that were designed to kill the whole party, or not kill, but fight the whole party, and you only send half the party, then you're asking for trouble. But in a situation like this, as long as 7 people don't go in 7 different directions, should be fine. It obviously doesn't matter with you and me because I'm playing all of the NPCs. So, yeah. So Bix heads off. Now what's Let do?
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said for like short-term splits that are like for role playing and getting things accomplished in town, as opposed to like long-term splits where you end up having to have like 2 campaigns going on at once.
Yeah, I had a group. There were 7 of them, and they all tried to accomplish the same things in town at the same time. And I was like, why? And they were like, we're very sure you're going to kill us all off if we split up. And I was like, I am not. And they were like,
In town too. Like it's not like you're in a dungeon or a cavern or something.
No, it was highly entertaining. I ended up putting them through a skill challenge to make them do stuff. It was funny. Okay, so Let heads off.
So I would say that Let might just stop one of the first people that they see on the street. And putting on Let's best smile, would ask, could you point me in the direction of the nearest inns in this town?
You have stopped a very harassed looking, probably merchant of some kind. She's looking at, she's rifling through her pockets, and she's looking up at you, and she's like, "Sorry, yes, there be the Lion's Inn down the road, and that's probably the best one you get, and then there's the that's not an appropriate name for an inn. Now is all I can think of. Come on, inn names. No, now I can only think of inn names from books. I hate this. There's the Tattered Cloth down the way as well, and it's a little. And she says it's not like gilt or anything, like golden gilt or anything, but you can make a fair amount of coin there. It's bigger and more known for entertainment.
And what would be your favorite?
And she says, I don't go to inns. And she looks mightily offended. She's like, why would I'm a working woman. I have things to do. And somebody has taken my pocket, but I'm fine. She sort of wanders away. I have to fire my husband because he has given me 3 suggestions that are
I see them.
annoying.
I see them. Those are terribly good or goodly terrible.
If I were disposed to puns, I would definitely name everything some sort of pun. And these are, if anyone wants to use these are actually pretty good. Indisposed, in trouble, inconvenient. It's not quite the right way around, but yeah.
Punishment. Oh my goodness.
Yes, he's the worst.
So one of Let's characteristics is that Let insists that every interaction that they have with someone, that the other person walks away better off than they were. Now, that's not necessarily richer.
That's
It
interesting.
just means that they're smiling. So Let does not like it when people are grumpy around them. It's perhaps maybe one of the good streaks that Let has, that Let wants to make people happy, but will have very strange ways of doing that. Sometimes beneficial to them and sometimes not.
I really
so
like that
with this-
idea.
Thank you. So Let will, in a caricatured, theatrical way, eyes wide, hand to chest, and say, "My lady, I am so sorry. I did not mean to offend you at all. For me, inns are places of festivities and enjoyment and kinship. I didn't mean to offend you in the slightest. What you said you got your coin stolen.
And she looks up and she sighs and she says, "I'm sorry. I'm just out of sorts. Of course, inns are there can be some inns that are quite respectable. In fact, the tattered cloth is quite good. My husband does go there. Yes, I must have dropped it. I This is always happening to me, and it's absolutely maddening. I've always it's always happening."
Oh, well, I wonder if maybe we might look around. Uh, Let's gonna try a sleight of hand trick to pull a coin from behind her ear.
Okay, go ahead and roll for that.
Uh,
Let's see if this works
all
out.
right, let's see. What is my modifier? Okay, that's a good one. All
First
right,
sleight of
what
hand.
do we got?
Yeah, that's really good.
Oh, only a 10 though.
Good enough. This isn't that hard. She's not. She's not. She's frazzled, and you're still talking to her, and she's like, "What is happening?" So yeah, you managed to pull a coin from behind her ear,
So yeah, and I'll say, you see, I think I found one.
and she's like, "What? Did you, did you, did you steal my coin?"
Oh no, not I. But I hear there are little rascals that run around town, and luckily for me, I have the voice of angels and come across these things pretty easily. Here you go.
She looks very suspicious, and she takes it, and she says, "Well, you're just gonna give this to me?"
What am I to do with it? Well, I'd spend it, but you seem to need it more than I.
And she like it is fascinating the emotions that are running across her face. Like she looks like she wants to be offended, but it's sort of relief, so she must have needed the coin for something. But then suspicion, like, why are you doing this? And then sort of like resignation, like, fine, fine. And like she puts it in her hand and then puts her hand in her pocket but leaves it there, like she's gonna hold on to it. She sort of starts to sidle away, like, "Thank you." She sort of
I
sidesteps
wish
away.
you much greater luck than you've encountered today.
She says, "Yeah, you too." Keeps sidling.
Lett'll kind of shrug, like, well, I couldn't crack a smile out of her, but at least she's not as grumpy as she was a few moments ago. Uh,
Yeah.
this is making me think that Let probably has like this there's a conflict, right? Where Let doesn't have like many long-term friendships, entirety of their existence is based on fabrication.
Hmm.
And so Let probably like that sense of connection that Let gets from people is in these very brief interactions of like trying to make them feel better, trying to make them smile.
Yeah.
So
That
it
makes
actually
sense.
it actually does a lot for Let. Yeah. Also, I saw a cat tail, I thought, across the street.
Yes, Aegon really likes to walk directly across whatever I'm doing, pause, pose, and then keep walking. And we think his tail is prehensile. It's super long. It's longer than his body, and it wraps around stuff. So he's like, when he sits anywhere near your neck, he wraps it around your neck. He wraps it around poles. Like he wraps it around your feet. It's really weird.
That's very cute.
So yeah, that was his butt walking by.
Okay. So
Yeah.
with that, I will, again, like not quite admitting defeat, but not a resounding victory either. We'll head to the nearest inn.
Are you gonna go to the lion or the tattered cloth?
Let's see. She seemed to recommend the tattered cloth, so I'll go there first.
Weird name for an inn. Okay, let's see. Interesting. Okay, so you show up at the tattered cloth. You walk in. This is an interesting. Oh, ow, 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 ow. Oh, I think I broke a bone in my foot a couple days ago, and I keep doing things that remind me that I think I broke a bone in my foot a couple days ago.
I'm sorry.
Holy cats. This is a a weird inn. It's very flat. It seems to be only one story, which in a town is very strange. And the door is a regular door, but it actually has a glass window, and there is a tattered cloth in the window, and the sign outside is itself another sort of tattered cloth, or like a patchwork of tattered cloths, all sort of like sewn together as like a flag. And when you get in there, you realize that the entirety of this inn is open. Like you can see everything. Like it's all spread out. There's tables and chairs everywhere. It looks like a very big place. Like it could probably seat like 40 or 50 people all at the same time very comfortably. And there's a stage in the back. And this is a bit unusual. It doesn't look like there's any evidence of places people could sleep or anything like that. There's the bar, of course.
I see. I would find this very promising, and after taking in the space, promptly walk up to the barkeep.
And the barkeep turns around, and they are a gruff-looking gentleman. He's a bit on the round side. He's quite tall, and he's got huge hands, like just huge. And so, like the cup he's holding that he's doing the traditional bartender wipe out thing, looks like it's this big, like it's one of those little tasting pint glasses, like the little bitty ones.
Yes.
Yeah. And he turns around and he says, what can I do for you?"
Good sir, I'm come to do business potentially, and I'm hoping you might be able to help.
What kind of business?
I am a talented musician, and I've come to this town in hopes of spending some time here and bringing the music that I love to play for the townspeople here. That being said, in the past, I've had quite the success with making arrangements with the barkeep. Namely, I play here, and I do not charge a fee for my performance. That music brings in more people who spend more coin in your bar, and in return, I get a place to stay and perhaps a few meals and beverages.
And he says, "Well, you say you're a talented musician, but I've never seen nor heard you before, so something you can prove?"
Why, indeed, sir. If you'll give me a drink to loosen up my vocal cords, I am happy to provide.
It's rather startling because his face breaks out in a grin, like he likes this move, right? Like you're clearly like making moves, kind of thing. He says, "All right," and he says, "Honey ale, do you?"
Oh, say again, I'm sorry?
He says, "Honey ale, that do you?"
Ah, that would be most lovely. And while you're pouring that, perhaps you can think about some of your favorite songs that you've heard. Perhaps I might know one.
Damn you, Lee.
Yeah, you said you needed improv practice.
Yeah.
I'm putting it out there for you.
Got it. Okay. And he says, "Oh yeah, okay." And so he cracks a cask. It looks like he's warming up for the evening. You know, like all of the glasses are, like the shelf is almost all full of glasses, and he would have been about to crack these casks anyway. And he gets you a good pint full. He brings it back and he says, "Now, you ever heard the one about the 9 tails? Or the one about the sky strings?"
The sky strings. Oh, you must mean Lady of the Clouds.
And he says, "Oh, yeah, I think that's right."
Why, yes, I do indeed know that one. If you give me just a moment here, and again, kind of dramatically clearing my throat, downing, I would say, half the beer. Maybe it might be good for me to roll maybe a history check to see if I actually do know that song. Either way,
it's a great idea.
Okay, excellent. All right.
You're pretty good with history too.
All right. Whew, 11. That's not great rolls today.
I think what you know is that he has I think in this part of the world there are songs that are very common, but they all have different names depending on where you are. And so when he says sky string and you reference Lady of the Clouds, that does sound like, and he's sort of like, yeah, okay. So you're reasonably sure that that's the song that he's referring to.
Okay. Given that I'm kind of not sure about it, what I might do is play like the first few chords of it as if I'm kind of tuning and practicing and seeing if he recognizes, if he like reacts poorly or well based on that.
And he's looking at you playing, and he's like, yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
All right. And maybe I would say that if at any point in the song I'm like stumbling over the lyrics, I 100% would try and improv on the spot and pretend that like I know exactly what I'm doing. I am far too proud to admit that I don't remember or can't do it.
A lot of these songs are the kind of songs that you do in inns and stuff where people can sing along. So they've got like those choruses and things, and they're the kind of
You
things
know
where
the words.
yeah, one of those, yeah. So yeah, you'd get away with that, I think, hands down.
Okay, cool. So I'll go ahead and start to play. Performance check.
Yep. Oh my
All
God,
right.
you have a +6 to performance. Jesus.
Yeah, I told you I rolled insanely high, and then being a tiefling and a bard, I ended up getting like an additional 3 points into charisma.
Yes,
So
you
at
did.
level 3, I have 18 charisma. I understand probably in a campaign I'd have to nerf my character a little bit.
Not in one of mine. I
All
always figure that
right.
out. What did you roll?
All right. So I rolled let's see, a 18.
That's great. Yeah. So you absolutely pull this off. You get one of those odd grins again. Like it just looks weird on his face. His face looks made to be grumpy, and anytime he grins, it's startling. You get another one of those, and he when you get to the end of the song, he goes, "All right, yeah." And he says, "You can see here that we don't have the quite traditional type rooms, but what the deal would be is you'd have to play until we close, and then my wife and I set up these." And he starts describing something you've only seen once or twice, which are like these partitions, and you realize that the walls don't have windows, and if you look closer, the entire wall is sort of like stacked pieces of like wall temporary walls. And he says, we build, he says, yeah, so we can build you a room out of one of those. We don't normally have a lot of customers staying here. This is more of a, stop on your way home kind of place, but I can put you up. Yeah. And he says, my wife's a mean cook.
Oh, I will be delighted to partake in that if that's on the table.
And
Now,
he says,
I
no.
like you.
He says, no. To be clear, she's a mean cook. Like, she's mean. So if you don't like the food, I advise you to take that opinion of yours elsewhere, because I don't want to put up with it. So please, it's decent stuff. Just, she's mean.
I see. I'll kind of wink at him and say, "What's your name?"
And he says, well, they normally call me Tax. You're welcome to call me that. What's yours?
Oh, I'm Let. Now, Tax, I like you. I like your energy. So I'm going to do you a favor, and or I'm going to tell you a secret, and I'm going to make you another offer that I think will make your day better. Now, my secret is that, good sir, I am a master of flattery, and I bet you that your wife will be better off after having met me. The second one here is that now I don't know how much business you get here at the end of the day, but I wonder if perhaps a bit of a public performance prior, perhaps in the afternoon as people are leaving, just to let them know that I'll be here for the evening. I wonder if that might help bring in some folks into your tavern.
And he says, well, we usually have quite a good number, but if you want to pull people in, I'm not going to say no to that. I'll just need to bring up a couple more barrels, and if you can sweeten the life, then you're more than welcome.
Most excellent. Now, before I get out of your hair and go get myself prepared for the evening, I do have one question for you.
Yeah.
A dear friend of mine used to live in this town, and I'm supposed to deliver a note to someone. I don't know their name. It's a distance, it's a friend of a friend kind of thing. But I do know that they are a tiefling, and they have purplish kind of lavender skin. That's to whom I'm supposed to give this note. Do you happen to know anyone who fits that description?
How do you know Keeman?
Keeman. As I said, it's a friend of a friend. A dear friend used to live here, and apparently there's something owed. I don't know the nature of it. I've just been asked to deliver this thing along the way. Could you tell me about Keeman?
Keeman's my wife.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, well, that just made things much easier.
He looks really
Excellent.
suspicious. He's like, how do you know my wife again? Like,
Oh, again, I don't know Keeman personally. Keeman, you said Keeman's her name. I
yeah.
don't know Keeman, but Keeman apparently knew someone who I knew, and they've asked me to deliver this letter, and I'll produce what is an empty envelope from my pocket.
And he says, "All right, as long as you don't mean no harm, I guess it can't hurt." So he rolled a 20 on insight, so I had to have something. I also rolled to
Sure.
see if how close this person was to, and I rolled another 20, so it was like really close. I didn't want to make it the bartender, so I made it the bartender's wife. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I put a lot of that together. Sometimes I'll use rolls and sometimes I'll make stuff up on the spot. I often use the stuff in the room around me as inspiration for random names. And so I got Keemon out of Pokemon. I just took the Po off. And I got
Nice.
Tax off of, we have a pinball machine in our living room. It's called Taxi. So,
Nice. Nice.
all right.
Awesome. So yeah, I will have this empty envelope in my hand, and kind of seeing Tax's suspicion. I'll say, I assure you, and I'll kind of wiggle it like there's no object in here. But that being said, there's a verbal message that I'm to give to Keeman as I hand her this letter. And so, if you don't mind, when I come by this evening, I'll be happy to give this to her.
And he says, "Yeah, all right, that sounds good."
All right. And now I'll be in kind of a little bit of a rush to get out for
Mm-hmm.
fear of Tax asking too many more questions. Before I go, as I'm kind of walking out the door, what time would you have me start my performance this evening? Usually I like to arrive 20 minutes early, just to get things situated.
And he says, "Well, I don't know, sundown."
All right. Well, then, good sir, and a very flourished bow. I will see you and that lovely smile at sundown.
You get the smile again, like as you do the flourish. He's just like, "You're ridiculous." Um,
Um,
yeah. What else?
I would say that maybe there's something about Tax that reminds me, like, if if oh God, what's my companion's name?
Bix.
Bix?
Bix.
Bix. There
Yeah.
we go. If like I kind of look at him, or reminds me of Bix a little bit. Like, well, if Bix could just enjoy himself more, perhaps he would have a happier life and a wife like this barkeep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so as I'm leaving, I'm like, shit, or shucks, sorry, shucks. Now I need to like come up with what this letter is going to say,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so there will have there will have to be some deception in that letter.
So we're getting close to the end of time, and I mentioned
Mm.
earlier that sometimes there isn't a beginning, a middle, and an end. We spent a good amount of time on figuring out that magic item, which I really enjoyed. So is there anything else you want to tie this up with just for now? I'm also happy to end it here. It's a pretty natural ending spot. We'll just do a little bit of wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah, this feels like a good ending spot. And, I don't know how the nature of these things go if you ever revisit these stories, but I had a blast with this. So if you would be interested in, at some other point, creating a middle and an end to our story, I'd certainly be open to that.
I really like this one. I do think I want to see it through to the end, so I might take you up on that. I'm
Sure.
moving, so I'm not scheduling anything for the next month until we finish moving. But yeah, I'll reach out to you a little later in the year.
Awesome.
Yeah, that will be fun.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Okay, so we're leaving. We're leaving Let as a male half elf who's particularly short
Yellow hair.
with yellow
Yes.
hair. Their
Hmm.
companion's name is Bix. Their traveling and working companion's name is Bix. He has gone off into the town to pick pockets, which is not what he calls it. He's finding coin.
Finding coin, yes.
I think one of the first interactions you and Bix had is where he's like, "I am not a thief," and
Yeah.
and you're like, "No, of course you just stumble upon these. Like you find cushions in the couches and stuff like that."
Yes.
And then you have just left so that you can do a little bit of performing to draw the crowd in, and make up whatever is in this letter. Let still doesn't know that this will wear off at some point. That's one of the reasons I want to meet up and do this again, because I really want to play through the moment where you pop back into, and I think it'll be really funny for you to pop back into that as you're talking to Keeman, because she'll be a lavender skin tiefling and you'll be a lavender skin tiefling but without horns, and I think that'll be interesting.
Yes.
And you and Bix are working off this list from a witch that has random stuff on it. Does that sound about right?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay. So we'll leave it there. This magic item is something I made up, obviously, or we made up. So if you go to play this with another GM, please warn them that it is a homemade magical item. And if they don't like it,
Yes.
please don't make them use it. I do not want angry GMs coming after me.
Oh no, no, not at all.
I just have this fear that some GM's going to reach out to me in the future and be like, "Did you let Glenn make this item?" And I'm going to be like, "Yeah, I did." And they're going to be like, "I hate you." I'll be like, "Yeah." I want
That
to.
would be a terrible. That would be a terrible approach to that situation.
Some of the
Just
magic
like-
items I've made are really ridiculous, so I would understand. But so
I like this item.
I think this is a particularly good one. I'm actually gonna see if my friend thinks it's balanced or not, just for kicks. So some of the funny chat things we had, my husband has decided to quote a song. This fiddle brings all the bards to the yard, and they're like, these lyrics ain't hard.
I like it. That's really great, Aaron.
Yeah,
I am always a
that's pretty
fan
good.
of rhyming.
Yeah.
Yes. So is Let. Let is also a fan of rhyming.
He claims that he did not touch your dice. That's because Luth is particularly known for rolling badly when not in combat.
Oh, I see.
I did base the bartender off of Random Guy, which is he plays Harlech in Treasure Tuesday. And Luth says a moving story after we move. I don't know what that means. And also says, with all this upcoming deception, are we leaving Let Lie, which is the worst?
Leaving Let Lie? Leaving. Are we.
Did you hear that? He just giggled in the other room. Like, he thinks he's hilarious.
Is that what I heard?
Yes, that was him giggling.
I thought that might have been Tara huffing in the background.
That was
or
him.
something.
Yeah. He's such a dork. And then Tyler says, "Is it another stone?" And I said, "No." Yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, so the last thing I do, I forgot to warn you about this, I apologize. The last thing I do at the end is I let my players tell people where they can find them. So if you got a stream that you're on or a webinar
sure.
you're doing or anything like that, and you want to share your Twitter handle if people want to ask you questions or anything, if you're comfortable doing that, now is a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I sometimes stream, but I haven't been streaming lately, so that's totally fine. Places that you can generally find me are on Twitter, where I will post my Twitter handle here. And I also have let's see, that is my Twitter handle. Yes.
Yeah.
I also have an Instagram, but that's just kind of more of a cats and thing. If for whatever reason you are interested in finding me there, that's totally okay. That's my my Instagram handle. But other than that, I hope to make a return on one of your streams. This was really fun. I think it'd be fun to revisit. But thank you again for having me. This was a great way to start my Sunday.
Anytime. I really enjoyed this. I think I'm sort of using these as excuses to hang out with people that I haven't gotten to hang out with around PAX. So I'll continue doing it.
Yeah, that's a really awesome idea.
Now,
thank you again, and bye stream. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, we're not. I have to say where they can find me. So
Yes,
I have mentioned that I will not be streaming my regularly scheduled things for the next month. But if I have enough spoons and my players have enough spoons the day of our normally scheduled stream, something may end up. I'll always post about it. So that will be Tuesdays with Treasure Tuesday, Saturdays with Broken Bane, and potentially Brunches and Dragons. This is the easiest one to just do at the drop of a hat. Although I do try to schedule them out in advance. And then I might be randomly streaming Overwatch and knitting like I've done before. I might stream Among Us because apparently that is the newest craze. So as always, you can find me on Twitter as Like7Spoon, all spelled out. And I usually pre-announce my streams. So, and then there's a couple of VODs up from PAX Online. There are a couple of panels I was in for PAX Online. Go ahead and take a look at those. And that's about it. So stream, thank you so much. Lee, if you want to hang out afterward, we'll just do a little bit more cleanup. But we're going to say goodbye to stream. Bye, stream.
Bye, stream. Thank you for having me.